Fall 1965, New York City. Rosemary and Guy Woodhouse, Mia Farrow and John Cassavetes, are a young married couple who live in Manhattan's Gothic and opulent Bramford skyscraper. At first, their friend and current landlord Edward Hutchins, Maurice Evans, tries to talk them out of it, pointing out that the building has a fairly shady history. It has been occupied by cannibal killers, Satanists, and witches, including the Trench Sisters, Keith Kennedy, and Pearl Ames, as well as the terrifying Adrian Marcato, who caused a stir in the late 1890s by claiming to have conjured the living devil. Rosemary and Guy make the decision to move in nonetheless. Guy is a newcomer to the acting world. He's done a lot of TV plays and commercials, which have paid well, but he wants to play great characters. Rosemary is a lovely person from Omaha, Nebraska, where she was nurtured in a Catholic environment and went to convent school. Rosemary is currently alienated from her family since they do not recognize her marriage to Guy, who is not just an actress but also of mixed Jewish/Protestant heritage. So her life in New York is all she has. She is a young housewife entirely dedicated to providing a good home for her husband, whom she adores. She has a fantastic group of friends, but at heart she is sweetly naive and lonely. Rosemary meets Terry Giannoffrio, Victoria Vetri, one day in the laundry room, a young former heroin addict who was rescued from the gutter by an elderly, eccentric couple, Roman and Minnie Castevet, Sidney Blackmer and Ruth Gordon. The Castevets' flat used to be the front portion of theirs, but it is now divided by a partition. Her friendship with Terry is fleeting. Terry falls to her death from the bay window a few days after meeting Rosemary. She and Guy are walking home when they notice the cops encircling Terry's body. The Castevets are also on their way home. Presumably distressed, they make friends with the Woodhouses and subsequently ask them to supper. Rosemary grows wary of their new senior neighbors, notably Roman's insistence on chatting with Guy in private. Other things bother her as well, such as when Guy's career takes off when his greatest opponent, Donald Baumgart, goes blind. All he worries about now is his new play. But then, all of a sudden, he decides he wants to be a father. Rosemary is overjoyed. He proclaims the ideal baby night, clearly having analyzed her ovulation cycle himself. That evening, Minnie pays them a visit and brings them some chocolate mousse, or mouse, as she calls it. Guy becomes enraged when Rosemary complains about a chalky aftertaste. She eats some of it and then hides the rest in her serviette. She passes off and has a strange dream after becoming disoriented after dinner. Rosemary is floating on a mattress in the sea, visiting a cruise ship with the Kennedys, having her wedding band removed, being carried through the Sistine Chapel, a brief shot of the linen closet with a guy saying, "Easy, you got her too high," then she's back on the cruise ship naked and told by the skipper to go below the deck, passing by a burning church and laying down on a mattress. When she finds herself surrounded by naked elderly people, a statue figure of a bearded man staring down at her, and two men tying her to a bed, her unsettling dream turns into a nightmare. Then Jackie Kennedy consoles her for being ill. Guy approaches her bed, but she is brutally raped by something that appears and feels inhuman. "This is not a dream," she exclaims. "This really is happening." Pope Paul VI, who is visiting New York and holding Mass at Yankee Stadium at the time, comes to offer her absolution. Rosemary is sore and scraped when she wakes up. Guy apologizes half-heartedly for having her while she was out. Rosemary is upset, but baby night turns out to be a success. Dr. C.C. Hill, Charles Grodin, whom her girlfriend Elise Dunstan, Emmeline Henry, refers to, verifies it. When the Castevets learn of the news, they convince Rosemary to visit Dr. Abraham Saperstein, Ralph Bellamy, a distinguished obstetrician who delivers all of the city's upper-class newborns. Rosemary confides in him, embracing his weird advice and his offer of Minnie's strange, vitamin drinks, containing a rare herb, tannis root. She experiences agony during her first trimester, causing her to lose weight and appear emaciated, which alarms Hutch, but not the doctor, Guy, the cast vets, or their Saturday night gang of charming old-timers, which includes Dr. Stan Shand, Phil Leeds, and the unpleasant Laura Louise McBurney, Patsy Kelly. Rosemary's anxiety and despair grow as her pregnancy continues, especially since no one close to her seems to want to acknowledge her suffering. She intends to host a party for her young pals, a requirement she insists on. She also insists on not inviting the cast vets. Her friends, notably Elise, Joan Jellicoe, Marianne Gordon, and Tiger Honigson, Wendy Wagner, tell her she looks terrible and her agony is out of the ordinary. She needs to see a different doctor. Rosemary tells Guy, and they argue furiously about it until she relents at the last minute. The ache has abruptly ceased. She can also feel the baby kicking now. Hutch, Rosemary's buddy, pays a visit. Roman and Minnie notice him, and Guy arrives home abruptly, as if they'd phoned him and persuaded him to hurry back to the flat. Hutch interrogates Roman and Guy, and before leaving the flat, he realizes he's misplaced one of his gloves. Hutch later dies after falling into a weird coma. Hutch's friend, Grace Cardiff, Hannah Landy, gives Rosemary a book that Hutch had intended to gift to her directly. It's called All of Them Witches, and it's a study of witchcraft throughout the years, with a chapter on Adrian Marcato, who appears in the dream, and his son, Stephen. The name is an anagram, Hutch's final clue left for her. Rosemary employs her Scrabble tiles to discover the dreadful truth. Roman cast vet is an anagram for Stephen Marcato. She now suspects Roman, Minnie, and all their overly helpful friends are Satanists. She pays a visit to Dr. Saperstein and informs him that she will no longer work with them. It's just as well, Saperstein says, because Roman is dying and wants to go on a final tour of Europe. Rosie feels bad about her suspicions and bids them farewell when the time comes. But not everything is as it appears. As her due date, June 28, 1966, approaches, she discovers one bizarre thing after another. Could Guy be involved with witchcraft? Babies are used in witchcraft rituals. Has he pledged to give them the baby? She also discovers that witches utilize their intended victims' possessions to blind or murder them. She contacts Guy's former opponent, Donald Baumgart, on a hunch and convinces him to admit that Guy swapped neckties with him moments before he went blind. Rosemary, distraught, packs a suitcase and heads to Dr. Saperstein to tell him what she's discovered. But his secretary's casual remark reveals something horrifying. The good doctor occasionally smells like tannis root, also known as devil's pepper. Dr. Saperstein is also a witch and must be involved in the conspiracy against her. Rosemary phones Dr. Hill from a street payphone and convinces him to see her. When she tells him about her suspicions, he seems to take her seriously and gives her a sedative to help her sleep, but she is horrified when she awakens to find Guy and Dr. Saperstein waiting for her to return home, and Hill is unwilling to stop them, seemingly terrified of them. She manages to lock them out of the flat, but before she can call for aid, Guy and the others come, having entered through another door. Rosemary struggles to fight them off, and she gives birth. They had to force her into the bed while Saperstein administers a tranquilizer. Guy tells her when she awakens that she has had a boy and that he is okay. Later, Saperstein informs her that the baby is no longer alive. Rosemary is sitting with the coven members, collecting her breast milk, and she thinks she hears a baby wailing through the apartment walls. She knows they took the baby and believes they intend to sacrifice it in one of their rituals. Rosemary arms herself with a sharp butcher knife and finds the barrier between her flat and the Castevet's apartment after a few days of pretending to cooperate and take her sedatives. She finds the concealed entryway to the other apartment and steals inside after removing the wardrobe interior. She stares at an oil picture of a burning church and says, "You got her too high," as if recalling the dream. She discovers the entire coven, including Minnie and Roman, seated in the living room around a bassinet. Above the mantel is a photograph of Adrian Marcato. There are other individuals there who Rosemary does not recognize, people who appear to have traveled from as far away as Japan. She approaches the bassinet, which is ornamented with an inverted crucifix, and sees the baby for the first time, horrified that the baby has unusual eyes, not seen to the audience. He has his father's eyes, Roman says, and the coven assures her that Satan, not Guy, is the baby's father. Guy ultimately informs her that he agreed with the coven to let them pregnant Rosemary with devil offspring in exchange for a great acting career. Rosemary spits in his face and slumps into a chair. Minnie has brought her a cup of tea. Roman speaks to her more softly, encouraging her to be the baby's mother and not to join their terrible coven. Rosemary hesitates at first, but her maternal instincts take over and she approaches the bassinet, warning the witch who is rocking the infant that she is rocking the baby too rapidly. The witch first argues, but Roman tells her to leave the cot. Rosemary begins to rock and sing to the baby.